the debate. I'm your host, Sana Makbool, with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the current situation in terms of the political dynamics within the country. And this is extremely important given the current scenario, especially with regards to what is going on in Pakistan, with different alliances being formed and different actions being taken with regards to political parties and their stances. An interesting development in this is the ECP's verdict with regards to intra-party polls for PTI that has instructed the party to conduct them within 20 days and move forward with this issue so that their election symbol can actually be retained. And this is, of course, something that has been going on for quite some time now, with an extension already being given to the party. And the matter of the party's constitution and the date on which the intra-party polls previously were held being a matter of contradiction. A lot of confusion with regards to when exactly was it held and what it means with regards to the constitution, whether it's objectionable or not, and what is the previous verdict of the ECP saying on the matter. The order, of course, hasn't been released, and we haven't really seen any progress in terms of what happened in the past. But at the moment now, we know that a timeline has been given once again to the party to be able to move ahead with intra-party polls so that they're able to contest the elections with the election symbol of BAD. At the same time, we also know that the IPP had also asked for this, on which the verdict was retained in October. And then there's also, of course, the kind of response that we're seeing incoming from Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, claiming that this is something in contradiction with what has been previously announced by the ECP, and how previously, there doesn't seem to be any such issues with regards to the date or when the intra-party polls were conducted, or the matter of the constitution of the PTI. And of course, this matter is important given what the circumstances will be and whether or not the party will be contesting the elections and will be able to take part in them. At the same time, we know the different alliances are being formed, with previously also alliances seen by the PMLN and the JYF coming through, and with the PPP's leadership, Mr. Bilawal speaking about old-timers to not be given another chance and to move ahead with new faces, and to encourage voters to go ahead and give power to the system and those people who can actually contribute to what is going on, rather than somebody that has already not been able to steer the country out of crisis. A stark contradiction to what we've seen in terms of the remarks given by his father, Mr. Asif Ali Zardari, in a recent interview, where he mentions that Mr. Bilawal is not experienced enough, or is inexperienced with comparison to himself, and that the PMLN stance of creating a conducive environment is something that he agrees with, and this is what is important. He believes that alliances are a necessity and that no party will be able to secure majority in the upcoming elections. And so the strategy with regards to what is going on within the PPP is also an important factor in trying to ascertain what really will be the move ahead and how aligned are the father and son on these matters. And so we're going to try and take a look and understand what is going on politically with regards to different parties and their stances, with the PPP, in fact, also declaring that they're going to be contesting in every constituency in Punjab, again, an important area in which we're going to be seeing elections take place. So this is going to be our discussion in our first segment of the show today. Our next one, we're going to take a look at the international situation with the genocide that is happening in Palestine, and we've seen that there seemed to be a brokered truce between Israel and Hamas, which was due to start today, but reportedly, due to a hitch, it wasn't able to do so, in something that has been brokered by the help of Qatar and the US. And this is something that will help towards the release of prisoners and hostages from both sides, now beginning on Friday at 7 a.m., where this decision is going to be taken forward for 4 days with complete cessation of any hostilities. Again, a matter that still remains to be seen whether or not that's actually going to happen, given the violation that happened today, and also in terms of what really will be the benefit, or how proportionate this agreement even is with the kind of numbers that we are seeing in terms of the hostages being released and the number of Palestinian prisoners being released. And then after all, at the end, whether or not this matter is really looking at the essence of what is going on, which is what the Palestinians have been suffering for quite some time now, and what they're actually fighting for. So this is going to be an important discussion with regards to what is going on currently and what sort of value does this 4-day truce hold, and Where exactly is this leading to in terms of the suffering that the people of Palestine continue to face? So we're going to be exploring that at the end of the show. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analysts Farouk Patafi and Raja Faisal. We've also been joined online by Barrister Safi Laghari, who's a legal expert and political analyst. He's joined us online. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of the discussion and joining us in the debate today. And Barrister Safi, let me start with you, given the current circumstances and what is going on within the different political parties. It's important to first also understand what's happening with the ECP and PTI. And I want your take in terms of the ECP's verdict now with regards to giving 20 days to the party to conduct intra-party polls, and the discussions around what has happened and whether or not what sort of merit exists in terms of this declaration, because there seems to be some confusion on how intra-party polls were actually held previously, when they were held, and what sort of significance is the PTI's amendment in constitution, the role that it has to play in all of this. What do you make of the decision? Can you guide us regarding the legal nuances of the matter and what really is under discussion here?
Sure, thank you very much, Sana. So I think the ECP itself describes the relief that it has given to PTI of 20 days. It describes it as extraordinary, as being extraordinarily lenient. The reason why this is the case is because election symbols are granted as per Section 215 of the Elections Act, and this is granted if the constitution of a particular party is being fulfilled. Now, in PTI's case, they say that elections were to be held in June 2021. Those elections that were to be held in June 2021 were in fact not held. PTI's stance is that they amended their constitution, and because of the amendment of the constitution, which was passed by the CEC, the elections were then duly held in June 2022. But those elections were not publicly announced with the entire party. They did not go all the way down to the party workers. They were held at only a particular level, and according to PTI, that constitutes valid elections. The ECP believes that they do not compromise valid elections. They are not satisfied with the supposed elections that PTI says that they conducted in 2022, and therefore the ECP has asked the PTI to conduct these elections again in the next 20 days. Now, I think one thing that I want to point out here is, and this is an important matter, something that I have personally experienced, because uh, before this matter was picked up by the ECC, I was, as a lawyer, approached by several members of PTI, and this was the exact topic of discussion, because a lot of PTI workers, a lot of PTI leaders, and a lot of PTI members believe that their membership entitles them to cast a vote in elections, and no elections are taking place. Instead, what's happening is that orders were coming in the last, and I'm talking about the last 2 3 years. Orders were coming straight from the top. Decisions were being made as to who would be area's president. These area presidents were not being appointed by the political workers, by the members through elections. These were just being appointed directly by Imran Khan, or by a select committee that he used to make. And in fact, there were three different committees. One committee was being headed by Asad Umar, one committee was being headed by Shamim Qureshi, another committee was being headed by Kiani, who was at that point of time in PTI. And this was becoming very problematic, because these committees were of their own accord granting different people leadership positions on in different areas, different districts, and it was creating a big ruckus, because as far as I remember, PTI. This is without going into details of what's happened to PTI as a political party because of all of the cases. I think PTI was headed towards an internal implosion, anyways, because due to a lack of any intra-party elections, because there was no internal structure within PTI, people believed that they could get to the top simply by knowing the right leader who was sitting up on the top in the CEC. And because there were multiple committees, and all of these multiple committees then had their own individual favorites, we could see very clearly that for every single constituency, there were multiple people who were promised seats, who were promised party positions. And in fact, in several cases, they were given multiple people were given party positions. So you would, for instance, find two presidents of Punjab, and you would, for instance, find two presidents of Bahawalpur PTI, and both of them were calling each other fake, and this was a fairly common thing in PTI. So when we talk about ECP's intervention here, I I think PTI sees it as extremely punitive. PTI sees it as some draconian measure that the ECP has taken. I look at it in a different manner. It will hurt PTI. There's no doubt about it. But it is more like what a surgeon would do. A surgeon would cut a cancerous part of a body out and throw it away, which is what's happening here. We need a clarity within a political party, not just PTI. All political parties need to hold intra-party elections so that there is a clarity on what the leadership is and so that there is a clarity on what the vision of the party is. You cannot have multiple heads claiming to be the leaders of a party. You cannot
Hmm.
have multiple and conflicting ideologies standing there saying that they represent what the party truly holds near and dear to its heart. So I do think that this will benefit PTI in the long run, and I honestly hope that this is an action that is taken against other political parties as well, not just
Right, and
PTI.
absolutely, Barrister, I agree with how intra-party polls are essential for all parties. But I want to also understand once again whether or not you think that, in terms of what we're seeing as a response from the PTI, is there anything that you think is undue here? Anything that perhaps seems to be crossing any sort of legal boundary or a legal option that was supposed to be given to the PTI, or something that's unfair that's happening, or maybe the ECP took too long in this verdict? Is it something that's a question mark with regards to this verdict?
So I think the only question mark really is the fact that Imran Khan stands disqualified and he cannot be the party leader if intra-party elections are held. PTI will have to, through elections, appoint a new political leader, and that is what's causing the real pain within PTI. Uh, his absence is probably being sorely felt. People who are his fans do not want anyone else to win elections and then come. They would rather that Imran Khan somehow, one way or the other, stays the if not the de facto, if not the de jure, the de facto leader of PTI, and and this action would dethrone him. So it's one could think that this is a political ploy to remove Imran Khan's moral leadership of PTI, not just the legal leadership which has already been removed. And if the moral leadership is removed, then that will of course badly hurt him as a person. And I can understand why some people might think that this is a targeted effort against him.
All
Hello.
right. Faisal, I'd also like to take your perspective with regards to not just the PTI, but also in terms of what is happening in terms of other political parties such as the PMLN and PPP. And it seems that we keep hearing the fact that they talk about the need of every party being able to contest the elections. But there's also, of course, the concern again then whether or not that's actually happening in terms of what's going on. And I want your understanding, especially with regards to how we've seen different political parties speak about the lack of a possibility of a single majority. What then will be the stance with regards to PTI workers and leaders?
Yes, Anna, this is quite interesting. Obviously, first of all, if we talk about the intra-party elections of PTI, in past we know that PTI was the party that always promoted this aspect of any political party, that there should be intra-party elections, and of course people and their supporters, they should be the one who should decide who should be in the leading position or on the top positions of the party. And we know that during while this case was being heard, of course it was part of their own constitution, and regarding that, ECP demanded them to obviously hold this election. At this hour, it is very important to note that, of course, when we know that general election is just around the corner, still they have 20 days. Within 20 days, they can do it. And I would agree with Barrister Safi when he says that, of course, at this hour, when their chairman is obviously is not eligible for contesting the elections, and their chairman is obviously inside the jail. So it is quite important to see, and I'm obviously keenly looking at their position and who could be the next leader, the next chairman for that party. At the same time, we know that in October I mean, Istakame Pakistan Party, they've been obviously demanding for a, for their electoral campaign. Of course, they want bat as their symbol, and which was denied to them at that time, and that is why it is important for PTI to go through this process so that they can claim their bat to be their symbol in the elections. So this is important. Coming towards coalition, if we talk about the coalitions, I mean, there is one party which I would always look at very keenly when it comes to making the coalition, and that is People's Party. People's Party, though we know that Bilawal Bhutto is obviously echoing around in every procession he's having throughout Pakistan, wherever he's going. Of course, he's bashing the previous government, and the onus he's putting on is obviously on PMLN. But at the same time, we know that there is another figure, very important figure within People's Party that is pivotal when it comes to making the coalitions, and I'm talking about the former President Zardari. He's always very important when it comes to the coalitions, and he's always considered as man of crisis for the for the party. So to me, I think his stance is very important, and the way I see it, he is not negating the factors of coalition, and he's the one who's actually sensing it that the coming government, I mean, in that government, there will not be a single party government. Of course, it would be a coalition government. Who to collate with whom, that would be quite important. To me, People's Party is posturing at this hour, saying to all of the parties that we will be available for all kind of coalitions. Even if it is PTI or PMLN, they will always be there, because they know that they will be having at least one province, a very important province of Pakistan, I'm talking about Sindh, always in their basket, and that could help them gain importance when it comes to making the coalition. So we will be seeing them
that's interesting, Faisal, that you talk about Sindh being something that's always in PPP's basket, and the kind of reference you've made with regards to Mr. Asif Ali Zardari and what sort of position he has, because it seems to be a little different from what we're hearing from Mr. Bilawal. And I'd like to explore that further, Farooq, with reference to what the PPP has been saying, and understand that the kind of political statements that are made with alliances or doors being open for any political party, and this is going forward with a conducive environment and whatnot. But it seems that these statements, even if they're just political, are more aligned with what the PMLN is also saying, and not really aligned with what Mr. Bilawal seems to be referring to in terms of old timers, in terms of PMLN's alliances with different quarters outside of the political domain, and of course with reference to different provinces being involved as well. Where do you really see the PPP first in terms of the contradictory opinions that we see between father and son, and then also in terms of what they're trying to achieve in different provinces, including in KP, Sindh, and even in Punjab, where now they're standing up in each constituency? Do you think that, as Faisal has said, that that is granted, that they have Sindh under their influence or in their control, or do you think that they need to struggle there as well? And what chances do you think they have in the other two provinces as well?
Right. One very interesting thing that I actually wanted to point out, and I kind of agree with everybody who has said that this is a kind of veritable coup within People's Party. It is going to take winds out of Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's sails. But I just wanted to point out that everything that we are commenting on is happening now and is in reaction to regional and national realities today. So there are many months to the next election, and until that happens, there are many changes that are going to come, perhaps not in the nation, but in the region, that might actually change the orientation of where we are headed. But for now, it is clear that this novel series Discworld, where the world is actually basically a disc, and it is standing on the back of a turtle, giant turtle, and whenever turtle doesn't move, everything remains hunky-dory. Right now things are heading in one direction, not the other. Now, People's Party and what exactly has happened right now, there can be many dynamics, there can be many reasons why Asif Ali Zardari Saab actually went on television and gave this interview. It can be a power struggle. We know People's Party has known this power struggle even in Benazir Bhutto's time. At that time, Kulsum Nawaz had her own, not Kulsum Nawaz, Nusrat Bhutto had her own faction, and there was a struggle between mother and daughter, and the daughter prevailed. And later on, we know that People's Party of the daughter actually kept on ruling the country. Similarly, right now, it can be a matter of control between father and son. So the question of good cop, bad cop actually goes out of the window. But it can also be the fear of losing control of Sindh, where of course Asif Ali Zardari has a lot of stakes, and most of his allies, his supported people actually find refuge under the Sindh government whenever it is there. So the developments, these alliances that have been formed between PMLN and MQM and then GDA and other elements of the sort, that might have actually brought some pressure on him. I don't think that it is going to, this kind of reaction is going to last very longer, because Bilawal Bhutto Zardari has actually been launched. When he became the foreign minister of the country, he showed his persona to the world, and he has some staying power when it comes to a stage of public rally as well. Whether he will be able to convert it into a movement, we don't know, but this is going to continue. I wanted to circle back to the question of PTI as well, because PTI's this ECP order is quite interesting, and I thought that because most of the leaders that were in PTI earlier, they have left, or some of them have become disqualified. Because of that, there has to be some kind of structure that reports to the electoral process. And Sana, this is not new. In the past also we have seen that, especially if you remember 2002 elections, at that time two political parties were in a pickle because their leaders were sitting abroad. One was PMLN, the other one was People's Party. So People's Party actually came up with People's Party parliamentarians with Amin Fahim as the head of the party, and PMLN actually appointed Javed Hashmi as the head of the party, and they actually led the charge. Of course, Javed Hashmi was then interned, and he spent most of his time behind bars, but at that time they also restructured themselves. Now here's the amazing part. Khatak Saab has actually registered a party which is called PTI Parliamentarians. So they have actually deprived PTI of that option also. The only option now remains that is going to actually play out is can be called PTI Patriots. So let's see whether PTI Patriots is going to actually play out or not.
Or maybe PTI Hakiki?
No, patriots, like People's Parties. They actually, compare themselves with People's Party.
Right. So we're going to see whether that actually happens or not. But Barrister Safi, another important aspect here is also in terms of what we are seeing with the JYF and the PMLN also getting closer, and of course PPP also coming forward with calling out for voters to actually come in and sort of give in to a party that actually is working for the people and is not going to be something that has happened before, or is not going to be part of any sort of a political alliance with the establishment, but really is with regards to working for people and the manifesto. And I don't know how relevant that is in terms of what is going on, or whether it's just rhetoric. In terms of what Mr. Zardari has also said, and how different alliances are being formed, even with different, what the PMLN earlier called turncoats and different electables in KP and other parts of the province, it seems that this strategy so far we haven't seen outrightly being pursued by the PPP. And even though Mr. Zardari says that they're open in that way and potentially any party can change its current stance, but do you think that the PPP will be able to move ahead with any such alliances possibly before the elections, and or can it really survive with just the kind of rhetoric that it's going forward with at the moment?
So I think Zardari
Question
Saab
for me or
was very
somebody?
clear when
Barrister
he
Sadi,
talked
okay.
about this matter that he raised about Bilawal being a little inexperienced. But I think the general aspect here is that we need to understand, and he was very succinct when he mentioned that in these elections, it is impossible for any party to win 172 seats on their own. There will be the need for a coalition. Any party that comes forward will, under any circumstance, need to link up with other parties. Now, what we see for the first time is that parties are not involved in clear pre-poll rigging. We see that there is a good, healthy competition going on. All parties are saying that they intend to compete on all constituencies. At least that's what the preparations look like. People have started preparing in every constituency, in every region of Pakistan, and that's good. That's good. And as these things start to increase, I feel that people will organically start seeing what alliances they can make in different constituencies and also on a bigger political level. So as we discussed earlier on your show once, I think the last time I was here, we discussed this, and I am firmly of the opinion that this time around we will see perhaps the fairest elections in Pakistan, and we will see elections in full swing. We will see all parties participate to their very best, and of course, once again, because everybody knows that this time around, no one party can make it. So the name of the game is going to be alliances. The name of the game is going to be partnerships, working with each other, and ensuring that they can make coalitions that can form the government. Something very interesting, though, just on a side note that I want to point out, is the elections that took place in the Netherlands today, and Geert Wilders won. He's very anti-Islam prime minister, but despite winning, you can see that he doesn't have enough seats to form the government, and experts are predicting that he will not be able to form the government despite winning the maximum number of votes. So once again, we are going towards similar situations of a hung parliament in Pakistan for sure. With so many parties now in the field, it's impossible for one party to sweep, and all of
Right,
them are
and
strong
Barrister
players.
Saab, you said this earlier as well in terms of the elections being the fairest, and I want to understand what sort of what is your premise in terms of saying that, and how would you be so sure in terms of this being actually the case, and then moving forward also with regards to alliances, is this something that we'll see post-election only, especially with regards to the PPP and PTI, or can it be seen prior to that as well?
So what I'm going to say is going to sound a little idealistic and maybe overly optimistic, perhaps a little delusional as well to some people. But here's what my take is, and this is genuinely what I believe right now. So in the past, elections were rigged because they were rigged for certain power gains by certain institutions within the country. Those included our military establishment, those included the bureaucracy, to a degree, our judiciary. All of them played a role. Increasingly now, we have seen that because every institution overstepped their role, they shot themselves in the foot. Time and again, we have seen that they've shot themselves in the foot. And what that has resulted in is a country that found it difficult to breathe in this year. We were going to default had we not gotten that 6 billion IMF loan. And the economy is in shambles. I don't think I need to go on talking about how bad it is. And the only way now to revive the economy is to ensure that everyone gets on and does what they are supposed to do. So politicians sit and make the law, run the government, the bureaucracy does the role of the executive, the military remains within its bounds, the judiciary remains within its bounds. I think there is now a realization that constantly overstepping roles does not help the country, does not help one's own self. All the people who have in fact overstepped their roles are also now maligned. I mean, we have examples from the judiciary, we have examples from the military, we have examples from the bureaucracy. All of them now, anyone who is now out of the power cannot go out in with a modicum of decency and respect anymore, just because they understand that they have ended up irking the people to such a degree, and that's why you see the vast majority of them being out of the country. So the fact that if there is in fact any realization at all that we are going to save this country and we are going to step forward in the right direction, and not just break away into smithereens in the coming year because we were defaulted, and then there'd be civil wars and terrorist outbreaks and nationalists who would try and destroy the country. If we are to talk about national cohesion and unity, then we have to take in the one part of the country that has not been given a voice sufficiently, and that is the people of Pakistan. And the only way the people of Pakistan will feel like they're being heard is if there is
Yeah.
true democratic representation. So give them a stake in the country, let them take the country forward the way they want to. And once again, I'm fairly clear that that is what everybody now understands. There's hardly um, any denial of what's been going on, and nobody really wants to overstep their bounds anymore. At least that's what I believe.
Right, and as they say, Barrister Safi, being Delulu is the Sululu, and I think Farooq is going to back me up on that. But thank you very much for joining us in the debate. We're going to be having you on further discussions of the show as well, and hopefully whatever you're saying, it comes to pass. But thank you for being part of the show. And Farooq, I'd like your take on this as well in terms of how optimistic you are as to what is going on. Previously, you've spoken about how election day is going to be fair, but that's about it. Do you think that possibly the kind of pressure or emphasis that there is on the people that actually is guiding the political leaders at the moment and will do so in the elections as well?
Right, Sana, my biggest problem with any insinuation that there is any kind of behind the scene wheeling dealing actually is I'm very skeptical about this, right? I tell you why, because I haven't seen any practical evidence of that, right? In 2018 also we kept on hearing people coming on television telling us that agricultural department is actually pressuring them, but they had the camera and the person would be actually pointing to somebody outside the frame, but would never actually move the camera and frame that person in the picture as well. So my problem is, without evidence I can actually keep on speculating, but I don't have any hard facts to prove that there is some kind of manipulation that went on or is going on. Minus that, of course, I have told you that our political system is partly modern, partly really archaic, and how archaic particularly that we still believe in clanship, and how Biradari system actually shapes most of politics, right? So in that, and then this perception, because nobody wants to stay out of politics, right? I remember that when PMLN was in power in 2013, at that time we had an interaction with Maulana Fazlur Rahman. At that time PTI had government in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and Maulana was really charged against that, and he kept on saying that convince Mian Nawaz Sharif, and I am trying to convince Mian Nawaz Sharif also to oust the government there and let us form the government there, right? And in Balochistan. Did not happen, but of course Maulana Fazlur Rahman now sees Parvez Khattak and his PTI parliamentarians as a threat. So he has hitched his wagon with PMLN, and we can see that. If you remember, there was a time, a show in which Zulfikar Badr was invited, and he was representing Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, and I kept on asking him, who is going to be the prime ministerial candidate of your party? And he repeatedly said that it is going to be Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. And I just pointed out that in the final pressures or final days, usually Zardari Sahab actually nominates somebody else. He was like outraged at that time. But today, in his interview, Asif Ali Zardari has categorically said that we will decide who is going to be the candidate for premiership when once the elections have taken place. And then he also expressed his vote of no confidence in the leadership of Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, that he is still under training. And then he also reminded everybody that he is the one who distributes tickets. So with that kind of a situation, do you honestly think that everything is because of possession, not because of wheeling dealing? I think there's a lot of wheeling dealing that is going on. People like power. They don't want to give up power. So in coming days, you are going to see many things that keep on changing. But if elections were held today, people think it would be PMLN that would form government. But I agree with what Barrister Safi was saying, that despite all of this, it is clear that we are headed to a hung parliament. Whether there will be a clear government or not, I think that PMLN will be in an advantageous position to form a government, but it will be a hung parliament.
Right, and this is of course something that is a matter of concern, whether or not we're going to be seeing this unfold, and we're going to be talking about this of course in the coming days. Right now we're going to be shifting focus to what is going on outside of Pakistan, particularly the truce, the 4-day truce that seems to have been broken between Israel and Hamas, that is going to allow for a release of hostage and exchange of prisoners. And Faisal, I want to understand, it was meant to start today, it never happened, and then now we see that there's another timeline starting early tomorrow. But it also seems perhaps that there is also an imbalance in terms of what is really going on. The question, of course, in terms of the exchange of prisoners is also not based on any sort of equality. It seems that the numbers that we're seeing in exchange for about 50 hostages is about 3 to 4 Palestinian prisoners, if I'm not wrong. And I know they're totaling it up to hundreds of them, but at the moment it seems that this is the exchange, and it has to be exponential, according to the Israeli Prime Minister as well, that it's going to be an increase of 10 every day, and this is why, or this is how this agreement is going to continue. Does any of this seem fair or logical or beneficial for what is going on ground?
Yes, and if we talk about obviously the truce, the word truce is being used, which is of course being brokered by our brethren Qatar, of course with the help of Egypt and US. They, both countries, they brokered it as well, and they actually brought this truce. Whatever we are seeing right now, of course tomorrow morning 7 o'clock in the morning it would start, and for 4 consecutive days it would be no fighting from any of the sides. But at the same time, since the day one, of course we have been hearing the noise from everywhere that it should be ceasefire that needs to be restored out there. And of course the governments as well as the people of almost every country, I must say, they have been demanding that the ceasefire should be, of course, brokered by United Nations, and United Nations need to intervene in this context, because it is the humanity that we need to look after. But from the Western countries at large, the narrative which was being promoted is that we just need a humanitarian pause. That means you can carry on your carnage, but in between you can pause for a little bit so that we can assess the damages and all, then you can continue once more. Sana, it took 15,000 lives, and nearly 7,000 of the lives, 7,000 people, Gazans, they have simply disappeared. They are not being found till now. So that means they have to actually dig through all of the materials, building materials and everything. They have to dig deep to find the dead bodies of the people of Gaza. And at the moment we know that every day brutalities, they've been carried out by the Israeli side. If we talk about schools, if we talk about hospitals, big hospitals, smaller hospitals, all of them, they've been targeted by Israel, and targeted intentionally, and even giving the very odd reasons for it, and them reasons having no basis at all. And they were just promoting a propaganda against obviously Gaza, that whatever we're doing, if we are killing innocent people, that means that under some kind of basements of Al-Shifa hospital or any other hospital, there is some kind of a headquarter of the Hamas, and that is what we are looking for. And then they've been giving all of these very odd reasons for conducting all of this carnage out there. To me, I think it is not enough. 4 days, It can be a breather, but I am expecting that during these 4 days, of course, the saner world, including the Americans and the Western world, they need to play their role. They need to play their role to stop this carnage and to obviously, help people of Gaza. And a very important thing which needs to be done right now is that, as South Africa has demanded, that the government of Israel, especially Netanyahu, he needs to be taken to obviously International Court of Justice, and he should be tried for war crimes.
Right, and this is important that you talk about what is happening in Gaza, Faisal, because Farooq, I also want to understand then again that do you think that this truce is drawing attention away from the actual problem, and that this is something that is just being done to sort of give a sugar coating to what's going on, and that countries like the US are actually helping the situation or helping the Palestinians on ground, but in fact what is going on, especially in terms of these truce deals, might not actually be in the favor of the people who are suffering at the moment, and would sort of just give a very, very shallow response to what really is needed in terms of action, and might just take away from what people are fighting for in terms of end of ceasefire, of a ceasefire, or the end of what is the suffering been for the people of Palestine for many decades now.
Right, Sana, I think that at this moment, the way we are looking at the situation, it is clear that, some kind of peace, even if momentary peace is going to start from tomorrow. I think that two governments particularly deserve a lot of praise. People don't realize how much there is at stake here. But one is Qatari government, which actually played a very crucial, Saudis of course, Arab countries of course, but also the US as well, because they have also been trying to quietly pressure Israel into actually coming to negotiation table. I have pointed out since this whole episode started that Netanyahu's interest doesn't seem to be in, getting the hostages back, but actually killing as many people as possible on the other side of the divide between Israel and Gaza. And that is because he thinks that if the war stops, he goes. And already you must see that, other hardliners, opportunists like Shaked, who is, Yamina's leader and who was former, interior minister, she has already started talking about Nakba 2 or Nakba in Gaza, where she says that the entire 2 million population should be taken away so that we can build more property. These sharks are waiting for Netanyahu to fall and then place themselves in his shoes or in his place. So that is something that will continue as well. But right now, if this peace prevails, even for momentary, gaps, even then at least we will know what is the extent of damage. At this moment, the numbers that we are seeing, and Faisal is absolutely right, people are not missing, Sana. They are buried under the trouble, even as we speak. And Ehud Barak, the former Prime Minister, actually pointed out that this tunnel that you are actually showing was created by Israeli forces because they were at that time controlling that region. So this whole idea of bunker busters being used on the bunkers and places where your own hostages might be kept actually makes it clear that you don't want hostages back. And there is something very interesting, Sana. 4 things have happened in the war on terror. The first one is elevation of nobodies to somebody so that they can be promoted as the enemy. I mean, we saw in war on terror immediately after 9/11 the way a bunch of cave dwellers were actually shown as the most sophisticated terror network in the world, right? Similarly, we have seen Hamas being elevated by Netanyahu as the biggest threat. And that has actually developed this interdependence of hate between the two sides. Hamas does these things and it knows that it is going to benefit Netanyahu. But Netanyahu's presence is actually benefiting them because of this anger and pain. They get, they stay in power. Similarly, Netanyahu also benefits. So first thing is elevation of people from nothingness to somebody. Then the second one is promotion of cruelty, because cruelty sells on television. The third one is monetization of suffering, so that there is violence and fear. You actually start using a lot of weaponry and selling weaponry. And the fourth one, of course, I had written it here, dehumanization. The enemies are not even human. If you attack one of ours, we are going to kill 15, 20, 40, 50, 60 infinitely, right? And they then start calling them, collateral damage. So this has been going on in two countries that have benefited.
Right, absolutely. And these are important factors. And of course, no human life can just be targeted as collateral damage. And of course, this is something that needs to be kept in mind. But we are really hopeful that whatever happens is good for the people of Palestine, and that we're able to utilize this truce that hopefully we'll see starting tomorrow to the end of suffering of the people of Palestine. Thank you, Farooq, and thank you, Faisal, for joining us. That's all that we have from the debate. We'll see you tomorrow.